So I went to the University of Florida in preparation to be a pharmacist, believe it or not.
Gotcha.
Pendulum swung
Okay.
all the way back over.
Yeah, the exact opposite.
Yeah, I was always fascinated with the human body, but that was like such an eye-opening moment for me because no doctor had ever taken the time to actually try to explain to me why this was happening. I think the older generations, they care more about what came after them than sometimes our culture and our generation right now does. Do I want my kids to suffer for things that are 100% preventable?
Especially in the Black community, you know, it's not violence, it's not politics, it's not what's going on economically for us. Those are not our biggest challenges. Statistically speaking, the thing that's killing us and the thing that's the biggest threat to us is Dr. Joe Taylor, man. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Getting better by the second. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you being on, man, being on the podcast. I've been wanting to get you on. You were definitely on my list for a number of reasons that we're going to get into. We're going to get into here in a minute. But for a number of reasons, man, when I was, working on the relaunch, you were, tops on my list because I think your contribution has been huge. The interest, you're a super interesting person, man. And just a lot about what you do and what you have to say, I think are things that people need to hear. But before we get to all that,
I appreciate that. First, I don't want to get too far before I say I appreciate that, and it's an honor to be here. Just to be asked to come and chop it up with you. I definitely appreciate the invite, and I'm looking forward to getting into it and going wherever the conversation goes.
Yes, sir. Before we jump into all of the good stuff, I really want to ask you, you describe to me what your upbringing was like.
Okay. So my upbringing. So I was raised in a two-parent household. My parents are actually still married. So they just celebrated
That's
a
awesome.
42nd wedding anniversary.
Oof.
So yeah, man. So I grew up in a household with a very much alpha male father. My mom is a stay-at-home mom for quite some time. But a lot of very much like tight-knit family upbringing. We were very, very deep in the church coming up. So like it's hard to talk about my upbringing without talking about how I came up in the church. And I think that's gonna lend to a lot of even what we speak about tonight. But my upbringing was that. So I was, my dad was my role model since I was little. He led us up through the church. We were in like a very, very strict non Atwood Christian Church. So that shaped a lot of my upbringing. It laid a foundation for a lot of what followed after, not all of which followed directly down that path, but it laid a real good foundation. Yeah, like I say, like very much tight-knit family. Watching my dad be an entrepreneur since as long as I knew, those things shaped my desire to be an entrepreneur, be a businessman, but also just being, that alpha male in certain situations. I have a sister who is like 2 years older than me. She's in the nursing field, so we're both in the health industry, and we're very, very tight knit. Like my sister is like my first best friend. We're still super, super tight. Sometimes people don't understand it. And she and I joke, and we say we're the only two normal people on on this earth because we understand each other. Our minds are so much alike in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, so like my upbringing was that, none
Yeah.
of my upbringing really took me in a direction of where I am now as far as like what I do.
hmm
But it definitely laid a strong foundation for, the man I'll become and, how I want to raise my children as well.
That's awesome, man. That's really good to hear. I like hearing stories like that, right? Because unfortunately, we don't hear enough stories like that.
Yeah.
And I think that it lends to example, right? Someone was, you had two parents that were examples for you,
Yeah.
that taught you to be an example, and I think that just that thing right there is a really cool thing, man. That goes across generations,
Yeah.
because your parents teaching you to be an example means that you're teaching your kids for themselves to be examples.
Yeah.
That's huge, man. So you
Yeah.
mentioned that your dad was an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
right? And so as a kid, you got to witness what that's like being an entrepreneur, like, because we know the ups and the downs and the
Yeah.
challenges of being an entrepreneur. What was that like?
Yeah, man. So, and it's with the dynamic, like I said, my dad was an entrepreneur, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I got a chance to see what a lot of time spent nurturing looked like from a mother's standpoint. So I
Mhm.
gained a lot from that time I spent with my mom and certain characteristics I picked up from her, as well as what I saw my dad do. So when you say from an entrepreneur standpoint, so my dad is 40 and probably about 46 or so years in landscaping and lawn maintenance. So my grandfather was a landscaper as well. So my dad, following his footsteps, worked with him for a while, decided that that wasn't going to work. He needed to do his own thing. So yeah, he started his business of doing landscaping. So I saw him, you know, I never really saw him struggle because my dad would, always just kept whatever he was going through kind of bottled up. I never really
Yeah.
saw that. Right. So I saw him dealing with his clients. I saw him, teaching, whether it be myself or my cousins who used to come out and work or the guys who was working for him. I saw him lead by example, always be willing to roll up his sleeves, get in there and demonstrate this is how you do it, and always make sure you're
Mhm.
taking pride. And when you walk away, go back and look at your final product and see like, is this the representation of, what I want to leave. So that's what I saw a lot of, but
Yeah.
knowing that he was an entrepreneur, I think when I was young, because that's all I saw, I didn't know what it was like for my dad to go to a job, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all I knew was he worked hard, he worked out in the hot sun, um, you know, but he always provided and he was always there, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
all my football games, all my track meets, both of my parents were always there. So the entrepreneur vision, I guess, that I had coming up watching my dad is a lot different from what it actually is because, I saw what he allowed me to see, and getting up
You saw
into it
smooth sailing, right? You
about
saw smooth
smooth
sailing.
sailing, like everything
Yeah.
perfect. There's no issues. You work for yourself. You make your own hours, which all those things
Right.
are true. But as a kid, I didn't really like, see the other side of that. And I think that's what a lot of
Mhm.
people don't see or know when they look at entrepreneurs. They just see probably what I saw as a kid, which is all the good side, which I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But that's what I
Mhm.
saw seeing my dad be an entrepreneur coming up. And those were lasting impressions that, shape a lot of what I do
Yeah.
now.
Do you feel like that's something you took from your dad that you do now? Like with your daughters, is they see the smooth sailing,
Yeah.
right? And kind is that something where it's important to you to be able, kind of from a protective mode to make them always feel safe? Because I'm sure that's what your dad was doing, right? He just
Yeah.
wanted y'all to feel safe, right?
Yeah.
So even when things was low, you didn't know that
Yeah.
they was low. Do
Yeah.
you feel like that's something that you've taken from him?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Being a man, being an alpha male, and you always want to put the best on the outside, whether that's really what it is, because at the end of the day, like I'm very much a positive mindset person. So I don't think there's anything positive that comes from, you know, magnifying the negative side of anything, right? So I
Yeah.
listened to a
Yeah.
pastor, the Reverend Knight. He said, what you recognize, you energize, right? So even with doing
That's
so,
good.
it's like, yeah, man. So like, even with doing so, I try to make sure that I'm always focusing on the positive side of it. And I definitely want to show and instill that to my girls. So that's something that is kind of the only way I knew. And like you say, like we're programmed to do everything. Like everything we do, everything we think, most of it is
Mhm.
programming, right? And I definitely
Mhm.
want to program that way and try to instill that and show that to my daughters as well, big time.
That's huge, man. Did I just see recently your dad did a CrossFit? He was in a CrossFit competition? Is that what I
Mhm.
saw?
Yeah, man.
He don't play no games.
Man, yeah, that was just this past weekend, man. I'm still on a high from watching him go out and do what he did, man. So he won the CrossFit Games. So he's number one in the world in his age group of 65 to 69 in
Are you
CrossFit.
serious?
Yeah, man.
Ooh.
Man, we could do a whole podcast on that by itself, man. But yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I saw him do that, and that's what I was telling him even this weekend. Just watching him go out and do that, watching him execute, watching his focus, his preparation. One of the things I told him was, you used to tell me this and you used to teach me this when I was, young, all the way up through my athletic career, all the way until it ended in college. But to see him go out and actually execute exactly how he taught me, how with expectations he had of me was something pretty special, man. Because at
Mhm.
66 years old, man, he out there doing stuff that people half his age can't do. So
Yeah.
that was pretty dope to see, man. I'm definitely super proud of him for that.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome. So yeah, you ran track, man, at University of Florida, right?
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I
And
did,
what
man.
was that like?
Man, that was an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
Mhm.
My athletic career was full of a lot of trials, tribulations, ups, downs, highs, lows. But
Mhm.
at the University of Florida specifically, that was it was exposure to a lot of different things. It gave me opportunity to travel, see the world, compete at a high level. It also taught me a lot about winning and losing, and it also taught me
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
created some of the chip that I have on my shoulder, even when it comes to just winning and losing in general. So,
Yeah.
my collegiate career, I came out of high school. I was a state champion, All American in the 110, 300 hurdles. So coming out of high school, in my mind, I was like, I'm about to go up here to college and do exactly what I did to these boys in high school, which is walk the dog a lot of times,
It don't work like that.
It never did work like that. So I went from being, the big dog, in the state of Florida and, ranked nationally to
Which
number
is not a
five.
small thing. The track in the state of Florida,
Yeah,
that's not a small feat. That's really not a small feat.
it's not, man. We got a lot of speed out here. It's a lot of like,
Yeah.
even within your county, your district, sometimes like you got some of the top people in the nation right here in your backyard.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that was a lot. I was actually talking to one of our patients today. She was saying she ran track, and she was, "Oh, you was a hurdler?" Because I'm 5'9", right? So
Right.
running the hurdles
Right.
at 42 inches was half my body height. You know what I'm saying? Getting over those hurdles was no small feat. But so I was telling her that I actually still hold the county record in the 300 hurdles, which is gonna live forever because now they stopped running 300 hurdles. So that's one of.
Oh, okay. Look at you.
But
It's
yeah,
locked
man,
in.
like 20 some years ago. But yeah, I was definitely doing my thing, raising a lot of sand. But like I say, state champion, All American. I went to University of Florida, and I went to number 5 on the depth chart my first day stepping on the campus.
Mm.
So we
Mm.
had a stable of hurdlers. Like we had the number one recruiting class in the country that year, and it was
Mm.
a lot of stuff coming in. So it definitely humbled me. I don't think that I was a arrogant person to begin with, but it definitely humbled me and let me notice like, hey, like it's a whole big old world out here. Like, and my dad used to tell me that all the time, but that was something I saw firsthand. But it was amazing running at the University of Florida with the facility, the things we had access to. It's an experience, like I said, that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Because I met my best friend, who's still my best friend to this day, got exposed to a lot of very interesting people, some of which I'm still doing business with even now. A couple of
Mhm.
attorneys ran track with, or they were associated with me there. So it definitely built a network. At the University of Florida, we call it a gated nation. And it really is a gated nation. So just being tied into that, running at the University of Florida, it's something, man. It's amazing. When I look back now, I look at
Nice.
the facility, I go up there, you a part of something that's way bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I know that had to be a really cool experience, man. You talked about like the wins and the losses, right? Stepping on onto the track and being fifth on the depth chart. How do you feel like that helped you going forward? Like that experience?
Man, it helped me a lot. It taught me patience.
Mhm.
It taught me I was always disciplined when it came to track and field, but until I got to college, I'm not gonna say it came easy, but I would be able to just kinda turn it on and then get the result that I want.
Right.
And that wasn't the case, in college. So it taught me hard work, sacrifice, because when I wasn't performing the way I wanted to, I had to, I went for one point in college, I stopped drinking. And, I got to college, like it was partying out there, but I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I got to start eliminating some of these things because something ain't allowing me to perform the way I need to perform. So it taught me
Right.
that. It also taught me how, when we talk about wins and losses, it taught me how to lose. Losing is
Big.
something nobody wants to do, but it taught me that you grow the most from your losses, right?
Hmm.
Winning is glorious, everybody love it, but it's kinda like it's the execution and it's the result that you expected. So it's kinda like it's less to learn from a win than it is from a loss, right? Now,
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, I still like to win in everything, right?
Right.
But what
Right.
I took
Right.
what took away from that was it taught me how to step back, regroup, calculate, learn from these losses, learn how to maneuver, and that definitely translated over into business, because as in business it's gonna be ups and downs, and being able to respond when things don't go the way you want is something that is a
Hmm.
life lesson, and I think really separates winners from losers.
Yeah. 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 Kobe Bryant said that, after the pain of losing, he gets excited, right?
Yeah,
Because he knows that so much can come from it.
yeah,
And which is, I just think, a lesson, right? Because a lot of times we just hang in the emotion of a loss,
yeah,
and which is fine in the moment, right? And
yeah,
then, but what comes after that is the most important part of that experience.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and so, moving into like you becoming a chiropractor,
Mhm.
when was that choice made? Like, how did you find chiropractic?
Yeah, yeah. So it actually stays right along the same storyline. It was at University of Florida. I was running track.
Hmm.
So my freshman year, I had never had an injury before in high school. And I got to college, and my freshman year, I pulled both my hamstrings. Not at the same time, but one healed it up, other one, right? So they were sending me back and forth to the team doctor, a lot of the same doctors that like the football team, basketball team would see. And the medical model, as we know, is Medicaid. So I was
Hmm.
getting Toradol injections, right? And I can remember I redshirt my freshman year, and I can remember struggling with a hamstring injury right before our first opener meet. And my parents had planned to come up. And I'm like, man, I can't have them come up here and I can't even compete. So they gave me a Toradol injection, the anti-inflammatories help and numb me up right on the side of your butt. And I was amazed at how I was able to go out and compete. And it didn't feel, yeah, it worked. It definitely worked. But that's what they kept doing. After the hype of the meet wore off, come back to practice, I'm pulling up again, right? So finally they sent me to a chiropractor. I saw two chiropractors up there. Dr. David West and Dr. Eric Materials, right? And they actually are still in Gainesville, and they played a major role in me becoming a chiropractor. I can remember sitting down in Dr. Materials' office, and he took X-rays, and he put the X-rays up on the thing, and he was showing me how my hips were out of alignment and how this was
Hmm.
putting strain on my hamstring, and likely a cause for me to continuing to pull up. And I was always fascinated with the human body, but that was, like, such an eye-opening moment for me because no doctor had ever taken the time to actually try to explain to me why this was happening. And not only was
Hmm.
he able to explain to me why, by me seeing these 2 chiropractors, it allowed me to be able to stop getting hurt, right? And I had other injuries, but not continuous hamstrings like I was having at the time.
Hmm.
So I went to the University of Florida in preparation to be a pharmacist, believe it or not. As
Gotcha.
pendulum swung
Okay.
all the way back over.
Yeah. Yeah. The exact opposite.
Yeah, like complete opposite. And I just did that because one of my cousins who was an educator, she was at my high school graduation and she said, "Oh, what do you want to be?" And what do you want to do? And I was like, just know I'm going up there to run track and I'm gonna get good grades and whatever I do. So, "Oh, you should be a pharmacist. They come out of school making 80, 90,000 a year." And I can remember being like, "Oh, wow, that's pretty good. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
that." And
Yeah.
as crazy as that sound, that's how I chose my initial major, which is not hard to believe why I was able to swing to the other side real easy. But so coming back to the chiropractic, um, I was in all of the pre-farm classes, so I was taking a lot of science classes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
and I was working in Target at the time, and they knew I was a pre-pharm major, so they allowed me to kinda, like, shadow in the pharmacy to see, like, "Hey, what it's gonna look like." And when I tell you that was one of the worst experiences I've ever endured in my life because it was so boring.
Yeah.
Just sitting back there waiting on somebody to come who gonna come to the counter. They grumpy, and it was just like, I was like, if I gotta do this for the rest of my life, I wanna kill myself, and that was it said as a, 19, 20-year-old. So
Yeah.
introduced to chiropractic, and I was like, man, like I saw this young, charismatic dude loving what he do. He was able to actually like he enjoyed helping me. And then he took me out back and showed me his Corvette. And I was sold. And I was like, man, you
Yeah.
get a chance to do what you love, drive a Corvette, go home happy. It's way better than what I just saw in that pharmacy. So you know what? I'm gonna come on over here. And that's how decided to change, man, because it helped me so much.
Yeah.
It was so interesting to me and it looked very rewarding. So I'm like, man, it's checking all the
Mm-hmm.
boxes. I can help other
Yeah.
people. I'm gonna love it and I can make a good living. So that's really where it changed.
Man, that's incredible. I want to fast forward to, I know some of the topics. Us as chiropractors, we're constantly talking about health,
Hmm.
constantly preaching health in our practices. We're talking about it on social media. We're talking about it to our families,
Right.
right, all the time. I noticed that where you spend a lot of your time is with chronic disease
Yeah.
and talking about these chronic conditions that we suffer from in our community. Tell me a little bit about how you gravitate, like how you got it, because chiropractic can be all over the place, right? We can
It
do all
can.
kinds of different things. What made you kind of move in that direction?
So really when I take a step back and look at our culture and where our biggest pain points are, right? I love being a chiropractor. I love
Hmm.
adjusting. I love, you know, educating people on how, their nervous system controls everything in their body is how we need to be able to flow, without interruption. I absolutely love that part of it. I also love the light bulb going off in people's brain when they realize that how much they can help themselves as well by paying attention to their diet and lifestyle. So I don't know that there was this one big epiphany moment, like, you know what I'm saying, when decided to become a chiropractor. I have that story that's ingrained in my mind. I feel like over time, it evolved as I was in
Hmm.
practice, and
Hmm.
seeing patients come in, and the more I'm talking, it's kind of coming to me more, right? Seeing patients in practice not responding the way that they need to respond
Exactly.
to chiropractic care,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
And truthfully, initially, like I was annoyed, right? Because the patient would come in, it's like, oh, this not working. I'm
I can
sick.
relate. I can
Yeah,
relate.
like, so I'm just like, okay, so let's talk about because I know that what I'm doing is helping your body, right? Not saying I'm perfect, but I know that when I adjust your spine, we helping your nervous system function. I know that this part is getting done
You
correctly.
doing your part. You know you doing your part.
So I think the accountability part of it was what kind of initiated it, where it's just like, okay, well, what else is playing a role in this, right? And starting to look at that. And you look at the patients who come in, and most of the time, the patients who are not responding, they have some similar characteristics, right? And not all of them are overweight, but overweight patients tend to not respond as well or tend to have multiple things that are going on outside of this. They have this, they have that. And they're starting to become a common theme, right? So
Hmm.
looking at that, looking at other comorbidities that they're having going on, like, man, like all these people got diabetes. Like, okay, all these people are, sedentary. All these people are having this joint pain. So it's just kind of starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together, right? And then looking at within our community and seeing how we do the same things and we complain about a lot of the same things. And
Hmm.
we take a step back and look at what that common denominator tends to be. It tends to be diet and lifestyle is at the center of all of it, right?
Yes.
And then from there, I just kind of started being able to see how people can get better when they pay attention to those things as well. Like I just feel like the pieces of the puzzle started to align and it allowed me to do my job better and it allowed me to help patients get better results. in doing so, and it just kind of became that. So like, testimonies of people saying, man, like my doctor got me off this blood pressure medication, or I'm no longer on this. Like, okay, we on to something here, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's
Yeah.
kind of went from there.
And I always say, man, chiropractors are, we are at the forefront of wellness. It's
Absolutely.
us. Like it's us. There are other people in the game, right, that are working hard in the wellness field, but chiropractors we're the leaders.
Yeah.
And so when you see a problem sitting in front of you every day, you're seeing dozens or hundreds of patients a day, um, it becomes your responsibility
Yeah.
because they're not getting the information anyplace else.
Yeah.
And they know that, and that, in your practice may be the only opportunity for them to reach true health.
Yeah.
So, it puts a lot of responsibility on us as chiropractors to pay attention to that because, people will do everything they can to walk around the obvious problems, right? Your
Yeah.
patients, your practice members will do all this stuff to walk around the obvious problems. One of the things they say a lot is, it runs in my family, right? As a reason for why they're in the health condition that they're in. I'm sure that's something you experience.
All the time, man. And I hate to hear patients say it runs in my family because me, you know, I just say what's on my mind, right? And I will sometimes say, no, nobody runs in your family. And like I joke with our patients a lot, right? But at the end of the day, it's like that tends to be true. It's like, no, that
Yeah,
doesn't run in your family.
you're right.
One, sometimes nobody runs in your family. And two, we know, you and I know that it's not the condition, it's the habits that promote or cause that condition, the
Mhm.
lifestyle that runs in the family. Right. So hear it all the time. I know you hear it all the time as well. And I think that opportunities like this is great for us to be able to continue to enlighten our patients and let them see like, no, this does not, like, you are in control of this, because when we accept it runs in our family, now you're just a victim. Now you're just not in control of the outcome and you're not at cause of what's going on. You're just waiting for this ticking time bomb to go off because this what happened to grandma, this what happened to granddad, this what happened to mom, dad, and you just come on down and we better than that.
And I think that's a lot of you're right, man. And where it comes to just pushing off that responsibility.
Yeah.
I think is one of the things I see a lot.
Yeah.
And so it running in your family and it just being genetics is seems like a pretty decent excuse.
Yeah.
And I'm always explaining to my practice members that we do have genetics in our family that can make us prone for things.
Right.
But it does not mean that you have to get them, right? That's where your environment comes in and it triggers those responses. And
Absolutely.
so some person might be more likely to get diabetes, but if they're not doing 1, 2, and 3, then they won't get diabetes.
Absolutely.
And getting them to really understand that. So what are some of the things, that you found that have been most helpful in your practice in helping people to do things like get off their diabetes medication or lower their cholesterol? Or you know what I'm saying? What are some of those things that you found in your practice that have been really helpful in those areas?
Yeah. So it starts with the conversation, right? And like you said, genetics, you know, there's Harvard studies out there that show that only 10 to 20% of our genetics play a role in the expression
Mhm,
of any disease that we have, right? So that
mhm.
means that 80 to 90% of it is on us. So when you talk about that responsibility, it has to start there. That ownership has to start there. So I think it all starts with being willing to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
I'm surprised when you say, what are the things that work? I think that's just being straightforward and letting the patient know nothing is going to change if this don't change, right?
Mhm, mhm.
I'm surprised at how many, patients say that their doctors don't have those conversations with them, which to me is a form of malpractice because
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
one of our main responsibilities, you know. But as far as actionable items, right? So, you know, diet and nutrition is at the forefront of what we, do in our office. We use, weight loss programs, lifestyle programs like Thin. We implement, exercise with that. You know, my wife and I, we do a monthly fitness challenge, you know, just to encourage people to get up and move, right?
Hmm.
So those are things that we do. When it comes to, you say, getting off diabetic medication, lowering their cholesterol, you know, we've had patients go through our 6 week, you know, lifestyle and nutrition program and say, man, I lowered my A1C in 6 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
think about that, man. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be on these medications for years, 10,
Yeah.
15 years, and you talk about somebody doing a 6 week program that is only putting their body in a caloric deficit and forcing them to eat nutrient dense foods. We haven't
Hmm.
even added in exercise yet. And people saying my
Right.
A1C
Right.
is coming down, you know? So controlling what we put in our mouth and knowing that, like you said, is going to turn on and off these genes, right? I don't think that enough
Hmm.
people are aware that what we put in our mouth, how much we move our body, and how much and how we decide to control our stress actually turns our genes on and off, right?
Hmm.
So there's a medical doctor
Yeah.
named Dr. Michael Greger. I listen to a lot of his stuff. He wrote a book called How Not to Die. And a lot of his stuff is centered towards like plant-based eating, which I'm a big fan of. But he
Hmm.
has a quote, and I want to give him credit for this. I don't want to make it seem like I made it up. But he said that genetics may load the gun, but your lifestyle is what pulls the trigger.
I like that.
And when patients realize that, I think that's one of the biggest things, that their willingness to actually go about the change starts to take place, because there's a million ways to do it. There's a million programs that could do it. But until it changes up here, ain't nothing gonna work. And conversely, when it does change up here, almost anything will work because
Anything you do, right?
it's gonna happen, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's it, man. I get that question a lot. Like, so what should I do, or what do you do, or what do
Yeah.
you recommend?
Okay.
And I always tell people that's not the most challenging part, right? It's what it is I'm about to tell you. Have you decided that you're gonna do it every day?
That's it.
Because you can Google what it is I'm about to tell you, but have you made a decision, right, that you're gonna do it every day?
Yeah.
Until you've made that decision, what I say doesn't matter.
It don't matter.
Yeah,
It
yeah, and
don't matter
because
at all.
we at epidemic levels, right? One of the things I say is, especially in the Black community,
Mhm.
it's not violence, it's not politics, it's not uh, what's going on economically for us. Those are not our biggest challenges. Our biggest challenge is health. Statistically speaking, the thing that's killing us and the thing that's the biggest threat to us is our health. And
Absolutely.
so it's the biggest, battle for us to be fighting right now, and it's so overlooked.
Yeah.
It's so overlooked. We're at the point right now where our childhood obesity is at 50%. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm sorry. Our adult obesity is at
Adult
fifty
is,
percent,
yeah, 50%.
right? Our
The
adult
childhood
obesity
not
is
too
fifty
far
percent.
behind, it's about 20 something.
It's 20 something. Yeah,
Yeah.
the childhood is 20 something percent,
Yeah.
and so they catching up. They catching up, man, and kids are getting sicker at younger ages.
And that's horrible, man. Like, when you look at that, some of these kids are not even being given a chance, man. And,
Exactly.
I try not to be judgmental to parents, 'cause I know a lot of time parents are doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have. So I'm not
Hmm.
saying this to be 100% critical, but at some point, if you can't do it for yourself,
Yeah.
do it for your kids, man. And that's one of the things that my
Exactly.
wife is so passionate about, is like childhood obesity, because you're setting them up for a life of suffering when they starting off obese at these young ages.
Yep. You putting them behind the 8 ball,
Yeah,
right?
way behind the 8 ball.
Um, I was talking to a naturopath friend of mine, and she was saying, I'm talking to her, and I'm just casually talking, and I said, you probably see a lot of, older people, people, going into their 50s and things like that, and the challenges that men and women are dealing with hormonally and stuff like that. And she said the fastest growing segment of her practice is early 30s.
Wow.
Is the fastest growing segment of her practice, because she has so many people coming in already sick and tired of their health issues in their early 30s. They've been dealing with this since they were 16,
Yeah,
15, and early 20s they've been dealing with these issues, and they're feeling them getting worse.
yeah.
And she said, so that's actually the fastest growing. Her older population, it's actually shrinking. because they're getting the message, right? As you're talking, I'm talking, and wellness is growing.
Yeah.
Older folks are really gravitating to it and grabbing onto it.
Hmm.
It seems like it's the younger folks that are now just beginning to start look for answers.
And that's sad, man, because there used to be a time when people be like, "Y'all want to look how I looked in my 20s." Like not so much anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right. Right.
nowadays, you getting these older, like you said, the older people outshining some of these young people, man. So that's sad because when we look at 20, 30, 50, 60 years from now, if we continue down that path, man, like what happens to us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's scary to
Exactly.
think.
It's very scary to think
They got
about,
these
man,
robots coming,
because
boy, they about to start. That's a whole nother podcast there, but
right,
AI
right.
robots and all, man, humans gotta tighten up.
Yeah, we got to tighten up, man.
We gotta
Or
tighten up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or we won't be here. We won't be here.
Yeah, definitely. I don't wanna take us
It
off that tangent because that's a whole nother
right.
podcast there, but,
Right, right, right. But even just speaking to that is our trajectory. Just our current trajectory, as a people, as it pertains to health,
yeah,
is just not looking good right now. Like they talk about, things like climate change, right? And the trajectory of climate change and what that could mean for the planet. It's that same idea when you look at the trajectory of our health and what that can mean for the people on the planet. Is really kind of scary.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think now more than ever, like you said, the older population seem to be catching on. I think now more than ever, we do have an opportunity because more people are open to listen. And I think that's where it does get a
Mhm.
little tricky because with us being in the information age, making sure they're consuming the right information is so
Yes.
very important, right? That's why what we're doing is so important. And I appreciate you and I applaud you for doing this because you're gonna help tens of thousands of people by being able to get information like this on
Mhm.
film that people can go back and watch and actually get proper instructions. But in this information age though, with people being more willing to look and see, I like to stay on the positive side of things, right? So like it's an opportunity for us to really capitalize on the fact that people are actually looking and say, okay, well, what is vegan? Even though vegan, plant-based, a lot of that, processed junk food, vegan stuff, you know,
Yeah.
can be just as bad or worse. I think
Yes.
just the fact that they're open to it gets them in the arena to actually get the right information. So
Exactly. No, I think you're right about that, man. One of the things I joke about a lot is when I was really thinking about getting back into this podcast and my purpose, right? Getting into my purpose, I looked across the landscape of information, especially as it pertains to the health of African Americans and what you see out there, podcasts and literature and things like that. And I always make the joke that either you see a medical doctor telling you to take your diabetes medication, or you see somebody telling you to eat mud and eat seaweed and sea moss and all of these things. The problem that we have is that there's nobody in the middle,
yeah, yeah,
right? There's nobody who's educated in these things,
yeah,
but also understands what true health is. There's not
correct.
enough of us, out here speaking from that perspective, the perspective of true health, right? There's no miracle cures, and you can't rely on pills, right? And really explaining things like you talking about, like lifestyle and the
Yeah,
way that you eat, how
right.
you exercise, how
Yeah,
you sleep, how you think, all of those things. And when you put all that stuff together, the magic that happens when you combine all of those.
yeah,
And so I think that, that's one of the, with you being having a heavy presence in social media, man. One of the things I appreciate about you, I think I told you this before, man. You my chiropractic social media idol.
man.
Uh,
I appreciate that, dude. I'm trying, man. I feel like I could be doing way better. So that's
yeah,
motivation for me to do more. But
yeah.
I appreciate it. I received that, brother. I appreciate it.
No, man, but the way in which you deliver information, the way in which you, the topics that you speak to, right, is in that chasm. Is in that chasm, man. That where we need folks talking about simple stuff like A1C, right? Talking about simple stuff like different types of salts and different types of foods that you should be eating and how you should sleep and all of those things. And you standing in that space consistently, not only in your practice, but out, like I said, in social media, out in public, man, is incredibly valuable in this fight, this biggest fight that we're dealing with. Because we do talk a lot about, the medical model versus, our preventative wellness model
Yeah.
and what the differences in those are like, right? Um, why do you spend so much time, talking about that, and why do you feel like that's important?
I think it's vitally important because we've been programmed, and I like to use that word program because like everything we see is programming us, right? And we've been programmed for so many years that go to your doctor only when there's something wrong, right? And then when you go to your doctor, you're gonna get a prescription for something, and you're gonna take that, and that's gonna make it feel better. And all this is doing, we know, is just putting a Band-Aid over this big gaping wound, right? That is just gonna
Mhm.
cause whatever that limb is to just rot off, right? And that's essentially what our body
Yeah.
is doing by doing so. So because we've been programmed that way for so long, I think that consistently my approach is very much in your face because I feel like, for every action, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction or a more massive action to undo all that programming, right? So when it comes to that medical model, we know what we're going to get. I had a conversation, with a patient that came in today, and I asked like, have you been to a chiropractor before? No. Okay, well, what have you heard about chiropractic? These are things that we ask, and I always like to get that information because for me, I want to know what I'm up against, right? I want to know
Mhm.
what type of
Mhm.
programming I got to try to undo. I got to do brain surgery on you. Before I even put my hands on you, I'm starting this brain surgery of undoing that garbage they didn't put in there, right? So it's just like, oh, well, they not good. Our practice aren't good. They not real
Right.
doctors. They
Right.
just push a manipulation,
It's not safe. Right.
safe, so that's what people are constantly hearing. And I feel like it's our duty to program them and give them actual, you know, information and tangible things that they can see, they can hear from other people's mouth so they can reprogram themselves, right? So I think staying in that space is the fight that we have to constantly fight because every day that they wake up and they look at TV, they're gonna see pharmaceutical commercials telling them, go ask your doctor if this medication
Yep.
is right for you. Why? So you can get on it and be on it forever and become a part of this science experiment and this money chain that we know is just gonna continue to churn out money, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
We think that we can say something one or two times and think that they're gonna actually get it. Like that's like telling somebody, "Let me show you how to do this adjustment real quick." And they're like, "Okay, go start adjusting people." That's crazy
Right.
as hell, you know what I'm saying? But essentially,
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
sometimes do is we think they're gonna get it on the first time or two. So staying in that
Yep.
space,
Yep.
letting them see that, the medical model is important when it's needed. And I think that's in emergency situations, and I
Mhm.
applaud all, for whether it be first responders, surgeons, when it's emergency, if somebody's bleeding and myself, my family, God forbid, don't adjust me in that moment. Adjust me when they get done patching me up. We need this emergency medical care right now, right? I think
Exactly.
that we need to make sure that people keep the medical model there and appreciate that part of it, but completely detach from that patching up instead of fixing, modeling. We
Mhm.
know that on our side, our sole purpose is to find the root cause and work on fixing that. So, the patch versus the fix. And we really just gotta make
Yeah.
sure that we, drill that, which I know I'm preaching to the choir telling you that, but for some of our
No. Yeah.
they not, have heard that or know that,
Exactly.
very vitally important for them to know and hear that constantly.
That's it, man. That's it. The medical model is designed to keep you alive. We're more concerned about how you live.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's it.
and those are the differences, right? And we got our spaces,
Yeah,
right? And for me, it's always been as long as we stay in our spaces, I'm good. You
exactly.
try to come in my space, we need to talk,
We're gonna have some
right?
problems.
We're gonna have some problems. I'm gonna stay out your space.
Yeah, right.
You do what
Exactly.
you do, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
it's that kind of thing, man. So, what do you feel like the people should take away from what we talked about today, or what you talk about all the time? If you had a couple of things that you really wanted people to really get, what would you say those are?
What I really want people to do is value this body that God has given us, right?
Mhm.
Whether somebody's spiritual or not, whether they're religious or not, like it's hard to deny that we are walking miracles, right?
Yeah.
Like we are
Yeah.
walking miracles. And for the people who are religious, n- to me, sometimes it's hard to understand how, if you're spiritual or religious, that you don't just completely value this vessel, this temple that God comes and dwells in. So what I want people to do is value their body, right? Really treat
Mhm.
it and give it what it deserves. And that goes into a lot of different directions. But I feel that when people do that first, a lot of the rest of the things are easy, right? Because that's a part of
Yeah.
what has to happen here. And you realize, be like, you know what? I only get one body.
Yeah.
Why am I treating it like this? Right?
Mhm.
Forget the pain that you're experiencing, right? Like, this is the only place you have to live until you leave this earth. It behooves you to really invest in it and say, what can I do to prolong it? And that's one of the main things that I really want people to do, because I feel like I said, when that happens, everything else, like you said, is gonna become easy. Everything else that follows that is just the acceptance part of it, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
the other thing I want people to take away, especially in the Black community, is that we have to be willing to detach from things of the past. Just like that picture right there behind you, right? A man drinking out of the whites
Mhm.
only. I love that
Mhm.
picture, right? Drinking out of the whites only water fountain. There was a time where that was the norm. That was
Yes.
expected, right? And when we talk about what runs in our family, or this is soul food and this is what Black people do, Black people also used to have to go to the back of the building to get their food, right? They just had to get up and call a white person massa and all. So we can't hold on to things from way back then that were forced
Yeah.
on us, especially cultural, lifestyle, diet, mainly diet. We can't hold on to those things and bring them over here and feel like we're betraying our culture by deciding to make better choices.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
I talk a lot about like shit
A great
lean,
way to put it.
that, like it's some things that, like, in 2025, man, we just shouldn't be doing, man. It's just,
Come on. At this point,
come on, man. Like, we gotta do
you know
better.
better. You
We,
know
we
better.
gotta do better, man. It's, some certain things. So those are some of the major takeaways. And a- another takeaway that I want is for people to think about the next generation, right? We talk a lot about like what's going on in politics. We talk about what's going on in, civil rights and all these other things. And if it wasn't for brave people like this gentleman here who say, you know what? I'm gonna stand up, I'm gonna do something different, right? I'm not going for this,
Yeah.
what y'all feed me right now. Like, if it wasn't for those civil rights activists who said, no, like, we not going for this, we want something different, then we wouldn't be living the life that we live right now, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of
Exactly.
the times I think the older generations, they care more about what came after them than sometimes our culture and our generation right now does. So I want our culture to look at the lifestyle and the habits that they're passing down to the next generations and really be intentional about saying, do I want my kids to suffer for things that are 100% preventable? And the answer should always be no. And if the answer is no, then I want us to take steps towards making sure that don't happen. Because if we're not intentional about making sure it don't happen, then we're accepting that it will happen and just hoping for the
Mhm.
best. And I think that our
Then it run in the family.
children, huh?
Then it run in the family.
Then they run in the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some of the things that I mean, I could go on all day forever, but those are some of the main things that I really want people to take from whether it be this conversation, the content that I put out. That's really where a lot of my passion is.
Yeah, I appreciate your passion. I really do, man, because like I said, we need warriors. We need people in this fight, in the
Yeah.
most important battle that we face today, right? And there may have been a time where our health wasn't the most important battle. You referenced some of those times. There
Yeah.
may have, there may have been a time where that wasn't. the most paramount thing for us to be dealing with.
Right.
But it is today.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is today the thing that
Yep.
that we have to face, really, really quickly, and really make some tough decisions culturally, about the direction that we're gonna go in.
Yeah.
So man, I appreciate everything you're doing,
Yeah.
inside and outside your practice. Just your your character, your, like I said, your passion, your thoughtfulness in the way that you deliver information, and going all the way back to what we started with, your example,
Yeah.
right? And because we talked about being an example within your family, but you also an example within chiropractic.
Yeah.
So for all of us other chiropractors out here who are in the fight, you're an amazing example, man. So I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate those words as well, man. You
Yeah,
touched on one thing I want to talk about real quick is, like you said, being
yeah,
an example in our family, right? It takes somebody deciding to make a change,
hmm,
right? And each of us have opportunity to do that for our family. You mentioned my dad and him being, up at the CrossFit Games and stuff. And this is not to toot my horn. This is just showing how certain things can snowball, right? There was a time when me and my dad used to kind of go head to head about like, medication, and he was on blood pressure. Man, I can share this because he's allowed me to do so. On blood pressure medications, he wasn't as fit as he is right now. And we talked about this with him leading up to the CrossFit Games. Like, God saw fit for me to shift my trajectory and go to chiropractic school. And my dad, he decided to go 100% plant based.
mm,
So he's taking his diet to a whole nother level, even beyond me, right? Even though I might have been the one to come with these ideas, he took that to the point where now him, my mom, my sister, a lot of my outside relatives, and it's just been that domino effect, right? And I think
yeah.
that when momentum starts to build, man, it's so important. So, like you said, you're appreciating me and you're thanking me for what I'm doing, but this what you're doing right now is gonna reach an audience that I probably won't even reach, that I would not have been able to reach had it not been for that, man. So for bringing me on, but also just for what you're doing in the practice, in the community, with your podcast, because all these are antennas, man, that like at some point somebody gonna
Hmm.
look at this content and it could change their life. And it's important that that happen, man. So I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate that, bro. I really do appreciate that. Coming from you, it's big for me. Um, I got a final question.
Yes, sir.
That I think is one of those questions that really allows for me and the people watching this to really get to know you.
Okay.
If there was only one movie that you could watch for the rest of your life, it was the only movie that you could watch, it's the only TV that you could watch, what movie would that be?
It would be American Gangster with Denzel.
Yeah. Why is that?
Oh, man. So, one, I think
Great
Denzel
movie, by
just
the
great.
way.
Huh?
Great movie.
Great movie, man. Great movie. Like, I think for one, I think that Denzel just played the hell out of any role, but I feel like certain ones he just really nailed, right? That's
Yeah.
one I love Denzel as an actor. But also, outside of the chiropractic and stuff like that, like, I think that the way that, you know, drug lords move, there's a lot
Hmm.
that can be taken from that and used in a positive manner, right? So when I
Yes.
look at, how he learned his craft, how he mastered and perfected his craft, how he
Hmm.
brought his family up with him. Now, granted, his avenue was taking him in the wrong direction, right? But just the
Right,
mindset
right. The
to
principles.
the principles, right? To bring his family together, right? So now we got all these people inside that I can or should be able to trust, so just everything about that, obviously, the movie don't always end the way you want it to. You wish you could change the ending of
Right.
it, but that's a movie that I could watch over and over and over again because I feel like, those principles and some of those practices even of that. And then too, I think that, this is something that I never grew up in a household like that. My dad was on the street, but that was long before I was born. But I
Right.
think I get a chance to experience the other side,
Yeah, yeah.
the other side, and I don't wanna live it, but I want to take those principles and be able to do it in a legit way and be able to stack and do some amazing things like that, man. So yeah, American Gangster
Yeah.
movie that I just watch
Nice.
on repeat and take some principles and put them in motion. Just no dope involved.
Right. That's a great choice, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being on. And hopefully we can do this again in the near future, because I feel like it's a million things that we could talk about.